Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Inspired Money. Thanks for joining me today. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer or listener, welcome back. I'm so glad that you are here and part of our community. Think back for a moment. Where did you learn about money? At home? In school? Was it mostly trial and error? Last week, we discussed money scripts, how our childhood experiences with money can influence our psychology today. Do we want to repeat our money scripts with our kids? Or do we need to redefine them for the better? The truth is, kids pick up money habits by watching us, not just listening to what we say. Every trip to the store, every online purchase, every conversation about bills, it all shapes how they think about spending, saving, and investing. But here's the problem. Most kids are not learning the basics of financial independence. That includes budgeting, saving, or even how money really works. Schools barely cover it, so it's up to us, parents, mentors, and communities to step up. So how do we make financial literacy fun, engaging, and something kids actually understand? That's what we're discussing today with an incredible panel of experts who are changing the way young people learn about money. Stick around. This conversation might just change how you think about teaching kids financial freedom. Before we jump in, this episode is brought to you by my financial advisory firm, Runnymede Capital Management. I will learn how to say that after 27 years. I want to invite you to take advantage of our 3-minute financial plan. You can visit inspiredmoney.fm/getplan. It only takes 3 minutes and you'll get a personalized snapshot to help kickstart your financial journey. Again, that's inspiredmoney.fm/getplan. Let's bring in today's guests. We've got an amazing panel. Let me start with Neale Godfrey. She's a trailblazing financial literacy expert, New York Times #1 bestselling author, creator of the Kids and Money movement. With over 35 years experience educating families, speaking globally, and shaping financial curricula for children, she's empowered millions to build financial confidence from an early age. Neale, welcome to Inspired Money.
Thank you, Andy. I love what you're doing, and it's great to be here. And don't look at my office. Okay.
Don't look under my desk. You've been talking about kids and money since the 1980s, I think. Did you really open the first children's bank
Yes.
at FAO Schwartz in New York City?
I did. I launched the topic of teaching kids about money in 1988 when I opened up the first children's bank at FAO Schwartz, the toy store. And actually, Princess Diana flew over with the 2 royal children to open up accounts. How cool is that?
That's so cool. I have fond memories of visiting FAO Schwartz and buying magic tricks where they would do awesome demonstrations of magic and suck me into buying all kinds of things. Let me move on with the introductions. We have X Renick. He is a financial literacy champion, children's author, and founder of SammyRabbit.com. The enterprise is dedicated to instilling great money habits in kids from an early age. Through his beloved character, Sammy Rabbit, interactive stories, catchy financial literacy songs, and online money school, he's inspired over 250,000 children worldwide to save, dream big, and develop smart money habits. Sam, welcome.
Andy, here's a big Sammy Rabbit. Hello to you. Thank you.
Sammy-rific.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
Bobbi Rebell, CFP, back on Inspired Money. It's been a long time. She's founder of Financial Wellness Strategies, which provides financial wellness workshops to companies. She is also the author of Launching Financial Grownups, specializing in helping parents guide their kids to financial independence, as well as How to Be a Financial Grownup, which provides a roadmap for young adults to adjust to grown-up financial life. Previously, Bobbi was the head of U.S. Business Video and a global business news anchor at Reuters after having held editorial journalist positions at PBS, CNN, and CNBC. Bobbi, it's been a long time. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love what you said about the fact that we can't just assume that the schools are going to teach our kids about money. A lot of schools do a great job, but ultimately it's the parents that are stakeholders, the ultimate stakeholders, I should say.
Which is why this conversation is so valuable. And I feel like I'm at a point, because I have 2 high schoolers and a middle schooler, like their formidable years are still happening, but hopefully it's a case where I've done a good job and not a case of like the damage has already been done. Well, time will tell. Rounding out our panel today, we have Paul Sullivan. He's a veteran financial journalist and author dedicated to helping families build strong financial foundations. As the former Wealth Matters columnist for the New York Times and founder of the Company of Dads, he brings deep expertise in personal finance, wealth management, and teaching children smart money habits. Paul, so glad that you can make it.
Andy, thank you for having me. It's going to be great to be here today. You've established a great group, so happy to get right into it.
I am so excited about this group, and this group is so passionate about helping kids, talking about financial education for kids. So we're going to have a blast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Let's go straight into segment 1.
Financial education equips children with skills to navigate personal finance confidently. Introducing basic financial concepts early helps build responsible habits that influence long-term financial well-being. Children develop financial behaviors by observing parents, guardians, and educators. Adults who model responsible money management, budgeting, saving, and mindful spending set a strong example. Everyday activities, such as involving children in budgeting for groceries or setting savings goals, provide practical lessons. Studies show that financial habits begin forming as early as age 7, highlighting the importance of introducing age-appropriate money lessons. Teaching children the value of saving, the basics of budgeting, and smart spending decisions creates a foundation for financial literacy. Reinforcing financial concepts through hands-on experiences, like comparing prices or managing allowances, helps children develop critical thinking skills around money. Open conversations about financial decisions encourage responsible habits, ensuring children grow into financially capable adults equipped to make informed choices.
Sam, I want to start with you. You teach a lot of financial habits. One of the biggest is to spend less than you earn. But we're up against so many marketing messages telling us to spend, spend, spend. Why do early money lessons have such a lasting impact?
Well, it's just the way learning is. Learning starts at birth, maybe even in the womb. And so one of the things we're talking about all the time, consciously or unconsciously, you've kind of mentioned that, is money. So that's one thing that just happens in homes. But then you layer on top of that something you just mentioned. There's all these media messages that are happening, thousands a day, that start shaping mainly our feelings and attitudes, which may result in our habits. And so that's why we think at SammyRabbit.com, you've got to get in there very early with simple, short messages around smart spending, around saving, maybe a little bit about investing. But for us, the two big core habits you want to try and form attitudes, feelings, and habits around are saving and spending. And for kids, there really isn't any reason why they can't form a habit of saving if they're led in that direction.
I love it. Simple but foundational lessons.
Yes, and they're profound. Okay, if you get in the habit of saving as a kid, that's a life transforming message. If you get in the habit of spending less than you earn, that's a life transforming type of message. Those are, in chicken soup, that's the chicken. All right. So in almost any personal finance recipe, saving and investing, okay, and spending less than you earn are the core of it.
I love it. Neale, how have attitudes toward financial education evolved since you first started?
Well, it was very tough when I started to get people to listen to the fact that it was important to get kids involved in earning, saving, spending, and sharing. And most people said, oh, let them be kids. But, as your panel has said, we start to form our attitudes and habits at a very young age. So I teach the natural consequences of money. And I start at age 3 because that's when the kids really start saying, I want, I want. And what I do is I teach them the only way you get money is to earn it. So I set it up so that the kids can do an allowance within the household, earn some money, and then learn to budget it.
Yeah, that's the quickest way to learn the value of the dollar. And you have to earn it to spend it.
Right.
Bobbi, what do you think is the biggest challenge in starting kids young on their financial journey?
I think it's important, Andy. And first of all, I agree with everything that Neale and Sam have said. I think that adding to that, it's important to teach them to make decisions and to have agency for those when making decisions. In other words, there might come time when you can say that they should budget, but there simply isn't enough money. So, okay, how do you make the best choice given the parameters that you're facing at this time? Because that's a very real world situation when you can't get everything that you want. It also could lead them to a discussion about, well, what can I do to create more choices in life? Because that's ultimately the goal. We can teach them that savings is good, but if you invest also, and you keep building on the earlier principles and growing their vocabulary, their financial vocabulary as they get older, they're going to learn that there are ways that they can control their finances going forward and not just be on the receiving end of you kind of get what you get. Well, if you could be proactive in those in your decision making, I should say, you're going to have more choices ultimately, and that's going to benefit you. And by the way, everyone around you. I talk a lot about a family ecosystem, and we can talk about that more later.
Okay, I have to remember to come back to that. What do you think? Like, helicopter parenting is such a thing these days. Like, we have to allow our kids to have that agency and to stumble, right? Like, we have to let them make their own mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to let them have the consequences of making a poor decision and not always step in. And sometimes that may mean that they are disappointed because they don't have the money to do something they want to do because they spent it before. But that's a lesson that once it happens, they're not going to forget. So it's hard because we do have, and I speak to an audience of parents that have older kids, generally teenagers and above. And it's really hard because sometimes these fumbles are real life fumbles and they make mistakes, but it's really important to let them kind of feel that pinch because that's ultimately what's going to motivate them.
Teenagers is a whole nother animal. I'm speaking to aliens. I have 2 aliens in my house right now. Paul, what do affluent families do differently when teaching financial literacy?
Well, a couple of things. I'll add in that, affluent families actually may struggle more than middle class families, and that would seem counterintuitive. But take a car. If you're a middle class family and you have a 10-year-old Toyota and you're trying to think about, do I dump $3,000 into it to fix it, or do I buy a brand new Toyota and the monthly payment is going to be $400? That's a conversation you're having around the dinner table. That's something that your children are hearing, whether you realize it or not. If you're a very affluent family and you decide you're going to buy a new Range Rover, you're not working through the math and saying, okay, to buy this $150,000 car, I actually have to earn $300,000. And then, well, it only takes premium gasoline. So every time I fill it up, that's going to be $100 in the insurance. You're not having that conversation. You're just going out and buying it and the car appears. So I think we're talking here about, how we're teaching children about money. I think what we really have to, bear in mind is just like everything else as parents, our kids may listen to us, but what they're really doing is watching us. And so how do we model the behavior we want them to have as adults? And I think we really have to go out of our way to do it. Why? About a year ago, my local coffee shop, which used to be just cash only, went to credit cards. And so now I have no need for cash in my life whatsoever. So everything I do, I put down my credit card, my kids see it, it beeps, a bill comes at the end of the month. We really have to talk about it because we're losing that, tangible nature of money. And I can imagine like when Neale was starting the kids bank at FAO Schwartz in the 80s, people walked in with money. Kids walked in with money and they counted it out. Without that tactile connection, our brain is struggling to make that, that leap between, what we're spending, how we got it, what it means. So as parents, we really need to go out of our way to model, what we're doing ourselves, knowing that our kids are watching us.
What do you say to that, Neale?
I agree, Paul, totally. And in fact, even in today's world, I start them out with real money, even though we're not going to have pennies, because I want them to start understanding that there is a connection between that tactile money and the digital money, because our kids grow up in the world of electronics and everything's a video game. And then all of a sudden there's a bank account and it's just another video game, and which leads into day trading, which leads into all those other things in the digital world. So I like tactile, number one, for the start, then show the kids after you've taken them to actually a real bank. There are real banks that exist, and that they see that their money turns into something digital, and then they start understanding it. And then we can make the leap of having them understand what a credit card is, how it works. And I show them the bills. Here's a credit card bill. When I charge this on the magic piece of plastic, it comes back in a bill. It gets paid. It will be digital, but it will be real. So yeah, yes, Paul, the world has changed. I even teach them about crypto also.
Fun fact, my kids have more cash than I do. Like they get birthday money, Chinese New Year money. So when I need cash because I'm going to go get a haircut, I have to take a loan for my kids. I have like a, I take like a Post-it note and I'm like, I owe you $20, and I stick it in their envelope.
I'm sorry, Andy. Andy, do your kids charge you interest on those loans?
They better be charging you interest.
Thankfully, no, not yet. I'm sure that's coming.
So I do want to say I agree with what I love what Neale said. I think that's a great thing to do with young kids. I do want to add, though, that given that we are in this digital world, we do have to at least leverage that in the ways that we can. And one thing I do is I use the digital footprint that my child creates, because he does have an app where I can kind of send him money. He's away at school. And I can say, hey, I noticed you were here yesterday and you spent this amount of money. Tell me about that. And we can have a conversation. So there's no hiding. You know, when you're no longer have your kid paying for things in cash, you know exactly what they spent money on. And that can be a great conversation starter.
That's a great idea, Bobbi. And I think that really opens up the transparency that just because it's digital doesn't mean that I'm not looking over your shoulder.
You know, I'd love to add one thing in there, and something I did when my daughters were young. I've got 3 daughters, and we just were so lucky that in our town back then, the basic Barbie was $10, and most kids learn math in a 10 frame. So if you tell them like lunch costs $100, a car costs $100,000, a house costs $1 million, you know, using round numbers here, that's really difficult for them to grasp. But if you say, okay, lunch today, you know, for you and me, just the two of us, costs $100. What's that? Well, that's 10 Barbies. So it kind of takes something from that. It connects the physical world and the digital world. So in their head, they can sort of grasp that. So then if you're looking at, you know, a $100,000 car and you say that's 1 million Barbies, they can't, it blows their mind, but it gives them something to sort of equate, you know, that virtual world back to the physical world.
And Paul, I would take it a step further. I love that. But what I do also is, because I make them earn their allowance, I will then throw in that Barbie cost X number of hours of work.
Yeah.
Was it worth it? And now they have the agency to decide whether it's worth it for them in terms of their work to earn that.
It's a big milestone when your child makes his or her first regrettable purchase.
Well, it's what Bobbi was saying too. When I take the allowance and I have them learn a budget, I have them divided into 4 areas. So there's what I have them do 10% going off to charity, and then the remaining 90 is divided into thirds. So the next third is what I call quick cash, which is instant gratification. And it's what Bobbi was saying. When you spend that, it's gone. And then I teach them about medium-term savings to push off instant gratification, pick a goal, save for something larger. And then also long-term savings, which is saving and then eventually investment.
Valuable lessons. Let's go to segment 2.
engaging children in financial education through interactive methods makes learning more effective and enjoyable. Traditional instruction can feel abstract, but incorporating gamification, real-world simulations, and experiential learning brings financial concepts to life. Gamification introduces game mechanics to financial education. Apps like MoneyWise Challenge and board games like Monopoly and The Game of Life teach budgeting, investing, and money management through play. These activities reinforce decision-making skills in a fun, low-risk environment. Virtual money management platforms and business simulation games help kids experience budgeting, investing, and entrepreneurship firsthand. These experiences promote financial literacy by demonstrating real-life consequences in a controlled setting. Experiential learning takes education beyond the classroom. Activities like running a small business, managing an allowance, or participating in household budgeting provide hands-on financial experience. Tailoring these activities to different age groups ensures that financial lessons are age-appropriate, relevant, and impactful.
Paul, you have 3 girls. Do you think technology, AI, and gamified finance, do you think that's changed the way they learned about money?
I'm still trying to get past the video with that kid fanning himself with $100 bills. So you scrambled my brain with that one. No, my 2 older daughters, they're babysitting, and when they began babysitting, they were getting it's $20 an hour in my town, so they would get this tangible sum of money. Now it's gone to Venmo, but my oldest daughter, I think she has like. It's like, I don't know what she's afraid of, but she has a big pile of cash. She has a big pile sitting in Venmo. She has a big pile in the bank. She's trying to understand, interest. So I don't think in that sense, I mean, she's very much, connected to the real world. She gets all of her shopping tips, from Instagram, but then she loves nothing more than to go into town and spend it. But it's quite interesting. And you asked me that question, like, she'll want to take cash to buy actual things, and then she pays her friends with Venmo, and then she never touches the money that's in the physical bank. So it's a great question for me to ask her at dinner tonight. But she's already, sort of diversified herself with her babysitting money.
You should borrow some of that cash sometime.
So you're 100% right. I need to go actually borrow money for her, because a tutor for one of my other daughters is coming over tonight, and I don't have the money. So I said to her, like, you owe me money. I'm going to go take it out because I don't have the cash. So this is just what you were saying, Andy. It's happening in my house too. I don't need to steal the money for a haircut, as you can tell, but to pay the tutor, I need that.
Neale, talk about what role hands-on experiences play and like play-based learning, games. How important is that for financial literacy for kids?
It's incredibly important, and our kids learn through that interaction. I mean, hey, I played Monopoly 4,000 years ago, and I'm not sure it got me into banking, but that's the lore. But this is the experiential is really, really important. And whenever you can, play a game with the kids. And even, I eventually get the kids involved in taxes, for instance, which is very hard to wrap our head around, for all of us. But even in the car, play a game with the kids. Who pays for what? When you throw out McDonald's and then you say, it's a private company, you as a consumer pay. But who pays for the schools? Who pays for the police? Who pays for the roads? Start getting the kids, even in a simple game form, to start connecting their world with the real world. So, I make everything a game, frankly.
That's definitely more fun. Sam, tell us about financial literacy songs.
Well, just as everybody is saying, our thought is this: learning and mastering things takes an immense amount of repetition, and there's levels. I like levels better than ages, because you have some 6-year-olds who are reading at 9-year-old levels, and vice versa, and that kind of thing. So our thought was, you need a whole variety of ways of repeating and building on the same messages. So you could say, we started with storybooks, and we're very habit formation, centric, so to speak. For us, we want kids, adults, everybody to create routines, patterns, habits, ones that have predictable outcomes. So our initial message was saving is a great habit. We put it into a storybook. Then, some kids like to read, many don't. We then put it into a song. We then put it into activities. And so we have a lot of ways of reinforcing the message. A lot of kids like music. One of our main learning philosophies is try to identify things that interest kids. Speak to them in their language. So that might be 1,000 different languages. Some people like music, songs. Others like playing games. Whatever it is, and keep layering. We created this idea. We have a song called "Big Old Dream." We take a dream big. We have a dream big financial education program that basically asks kids, "What is your big dream?" Now let's put together a plan on how we can make that come true, around various aspects of goal setting and planning, but also money. Are you going to need to save for it? What choices are you going to make? That type of a thing. So songs are a great way to teach, and even if you're using other methods, it's a great way to supplement learning, and it brings a whole different energy to an experience. And somebody mentioned, I think it was Neale, there's all these teachable moments. Some of them are in cars. So when you're on trips, maybe they're just short trips, they're going to school. Hey, you can pop in a song and have a short conversation about it. And so music is a great way to teach and has a lot of advantages.
Yeah, I love the idea of music because it's fun for kids, but music just cuts across or through cultures and really connects us, kind of like food does.
Kind of like food does, yes.
Bobbi, in your book, Financial Grown Up, you talk to a lot of high achievers. Mm-hmm. What's the role of financial mentorship for helping kids understand money better?
Well, I think first of all, thank you so much. And thank you, by the way, for showing my book, Launching Financial Grown-Ups, in the video. That was really fun. I think that role models make it real. A lot of the people featured in my first book, How to Be a Financial Grown-Up, are people like Shark Tank's Kevin. I'm forgetting his name.
Kevin
my
O'Leary.
God, Kevin, guys, help me.
O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary. And designer Cynthia Rowley, and people who have really made it in very innovative ways, in very tangible ways, where they're real people that people can relate to. Even Drew Barrymore is in there. And Drew Barrymore, kind of came from behind. She was kind of a mess, and she had a real comeback, and she reinvented herself and really had a lot of, beyond her talk show now, she had a big retail business, Flour, I think was the brand, at Walmart and so on. And I interviewed her actually at a business conference of all things. So these role models kind of come from everywhere, and that we should never be dismissive of people because they're not necessarily working in finance as a role model. They can be in many different industries, and you can see the success. Sometimes there's a failure and a comeback. I love those stories as well in anyone. And I do want to say one more thing about the gamification, because I do love the Monopoly is my favorite, but I want to point out that one thing we should all think about is where we may love Monopoly, and let's all try to get our kids into it. I agree with that. I love the songs, all those things, but it's also important to actively listen and pay attention to where your kids' attention is. For me, it's been a lot of video games, these games on the Xbox that I don't really understand. But one thing I did understand when I saw my son playing them, sometimes unfortunately with my husband, was that there were these in-app purchases. And I really was upset about them because I didn't want my son to be buying them, just because I didn't really think it was a good use of money. So we had a lot of discussions about that, but shortcut, right? Am I getting that, guys? Because like I said, I don't know the games that well, but they're basically a shortcut. And what I learned is if you just play simple without thinking outside the box, you don't have extra resources, you're just going to have to earn every penny. And it's really hard to always earn income and earn your way up to these better and better positions in the video game. But if you have wealth, not saying it's the best way to spend it, but if you have wealth, you can buy shortcuts in life. And that was an interesting lesson. And I have conflicted feelings about it, but that's really what these in-app purchases are. They're a way to buy yourself out of working harder on certain things. And I thought it was an interesting thing to point out to my son that, well, if you do have basically the wealthy can create shortcuts. And so you have to think about how you feel about that, but also what you want to do in your own life. Do you want to make life easier for you and future generations? Or do you want to just kind of take the simpler, easier, longer road? I don't know. I wonder what everyone thinks about that.
Real world lessons.
I don't know, but that's where my kids were. I mean, that's kind of, it is what it is. They didn't want to play Monopoly with me a lot.
I love it. I would love to know what was the response of your son when you framed it that way.
Well, he didn't like, in terms of his actual behavior, he didn't like the idea of buying in-app purchases because he thinks the video game companies are out to sort of trick you into spending your money. So I don't disagree with that. But he also did agree that life is easier when you have money. So that idea did resonate with him. He just also didn't want to spend the money.
It's an interesting lesson because I think that my son, who's a freshman in high school, he got like some frugality from me. So I always told him, no, you cannot buy Robux. You cannot buy this. You cannot buy that. And eventually he realized that, oh, well, if he spends enough time playing the game, then he can earn whatever points. So I think he realized saving money was good. I don't know if he learned about valuing his time. Right.
I mean, there could be an argument to be made that if you want to achieve certain things in life and can buy yourself a shortcut, maybe that is a good use of the money. But on principle, I am against in-app purchases. I do think they're not the best use of our money.
No, they don't seem like money well spent.
No.
But I'm not a gamer. All right, so let's move to our next segment. We're going to talk about media and money.
Children are constantly exposed to advertising, social media, and influencer marketing, shaping their perceptions of spending, saving, and material wealth. Without guidance, these influences can lead to unrealistic financial expectations and impulsive consumer behaviors. Advertising targets young audiences through television, digital platforms, and influencer endorsements. Many children struggle to distinguish between entertainment and marketing, making them more susceptible to commercial persuasion. Social media further amplifies consumerist pressures as influencers showcase curated lifestyles that can distort financial realities. Teaching media literacy can help children critically assess advertising messages. Parents and educators can encourage discussions about marketing tactics, helping kids recognize persuasive intent. Setting screen time limits and distinguishing between needs and wants also foster responsible spending habits. Encouraging children to question advertisements, asking whether a product is necessary or if an influencer is being paid to promote it, builds skepticism and financial awareness. Developing these critical thinking skills early promotes mindful consumption and responsible financial habits.
Sam, you've got your money school. What are some effective ways to help kids differentiate between needs and wants?
Wants and needs. I'm a big believer in wants. Have kids identify what it is they want, what they really want, that they're willing to invest their time and work towards. And creating, lists. Just start off with three things and then trying to prioritize them. To me, wants and needs is really a lesson on prioritizing. And, as you've mentioned, not only, your money, but your time. I really like the idea. Again, I think Neale mentioned this, that, looking at money in different ways, how much time did it take me to earn this want or need? I think that's a good exercise. But, I think to start off with on kids, on wants and needs, if that's your big lesson, to me, that is one of the lessons, let's say, related to smart spending, is you just start with making lists, that type of a thing. And there's a lot of opportunity to do that in daily life. Grocery shopping is one way to do that. But that's for me, I something Bobbi said that resonated with me, and it's the idea of understanding, what your kid or your student is interested in, and then try and organize your teaching or your discussions, whatever you want to call them, around that. And so video gaming, for example, what I've been really amazed about is there's opportunities everywhere to, have a short message, a long message, whatever it is. And I think what, kind of came out in the discussion with Bobbi is you're watching this video, and now, which lesson is it that I'm going to, start with, but organize around their interest. And if you think the needs and wants thing, is your priority, start with the list there, and maybe start with the grocery list.
I like it. Bobbi, how does media literacy tie into financial literacy? And what can families do to improve both?
Well, I think that it can be very nuanced, because we have to, and thank you very much, Sam, for pointing out, we have to pay attention to what our kids are paying attention to. And at one point, I remember my son wanted to be a YouTuber. And I said, but, you have to earn a living. And, even successful YouTubers, unless you're really top, they're not earning enough to really live on. And he said, well, that's not true. And I said, well, tell me more. And he pointed out a gentleman named Mr. Beast, who apparently is worth about $500 million. And then, to his credit, he proceeded to explain to me all the different income streams that Mr. Beast had. Mr. Beast doesn't just do YouTube videos. He raises money for charity, which was interesting. And that was one of the first things he talked about. But he talked about the diversification that's gone on, his different investments, that he has a merch line, that he does different projects with different people and different collaborations. And it was interesting that I had kind of been dismissive about it, but he actually had a very strong and coherent answer right back at me, which said to me, it's not so much about the videos, it's about the fact that here is someone that is a role model, back to your point, Andy, that is teaching him diversification of income streams, being creative, not being dependent on one income stream, and also being able to communicate with people and being transparent with your followers. I think that's really good, that Mr. Beast isn't hiding where his money is coming from. He is letting his fans know, well, no, I'm not just making money from this ad in the YouTube video that I made. There's all these other things going on. I think that's really valuable.
Paul, how do we teach our kids the difference between being rich and being wealthy?
It's a question I actually have an answer for, because it was the whole thesis of my second book, The Thin Green Line. And so, rich is a dollar. It's a dollar amount. Like, you can have a lot of it, you can have a little bit. Wealthy is being able to make choices. And so in The Thin Green Line, we essentially took, the S&P 500 from the 1980s to today. It starts low, ends up high, but it's a little jagged along the way. And we said, if you were wealthy, you were on the right side. You were on top of that line. And if you were poor rich, you were beneath it, no matter how much money you earned in the end. And people would say, well, what does that mean? And I'd always give the example that, two of the wealthiest people I knew were my Aunt Carol and John Huntsman Sr. My Aunt Carol is a retired public school teacher who takes 1 or 2 trips a year. Her best friend is a nun. She's not rich by some people's definition, but she's wealthy because she can do whatever she wants. And of course, John Huntsman Sr., he invented the clamshell package for the Big Mac. He invented styrofoam packing peanuts. He was the first person ever to give away $1 billion. But he is also wealthy because he's doing everything that he wants to do in his life. And when you break it down that way and have a really, I think, open conversation with our kids, it's essential, because, kind of what Sam was saying before, needs and wants. Well, this is not my idea. This is a former colleague of mine at the New York Times, Ron Lieber, who wrote a great book called The Opposite of Spoiled. What he would do when his daughters got old enough to earn money is he would say, okay, for school, we will pay for the equivalent of, the Lands' End pants or the LL Bean pants. If you want, XYZ designer brand that you saw, as Bobbi was talking about, on social media, that's fine, but you will pay the difference. And then it made kids think, okay, my parents will cover the needs. I need clothes to go to school. But if I want to elevate it to the wants, I have to add $50, $70, whatever. And it gets them thinking very early about needs and wants. And I think that's setting them up, hopefully, for a life where they'll be, more wealthy than rich, no matter how much money they earn.
It's a good lesson. The Lululemon pants, that's a premium.
That's a premium. Yeah.
Sam, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back just as a side story. Bobbi mentioned YouTubers. We do a lot of work with second and third graders, and we ask them, what do you want to do? And I have to tell you, just as many kids want to be YouTubers today as they want to be athletes. I just, found that really amazing. We're asking, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a YouTuber. And yeah, at maybe a lot of ages, they have no idea about the realities, as Bobbi was pointing out, that very few people, make a living out of that. But that's the age we live in.
Neale, I want to ask you, since we're talking about YouTubers and the rise of influencer culture, what should parents teach kids about the difference between real wealth and a curated lifestyle that we see online?
It goes back into the conversation that we've been having about needs and wants, and are you rich? And my thing is, you're rich if you have enough food and a roof over your head and enough to give to other people. And it's my values that I want to teach to the children. And that's where it starts. It's everything that we've talked about today. It goes back into what is important. Now, just because an investment banker earns more money than a violinist, there is not more worth placed upon that person who earns more money. So I think it's also very important to have those conversations. So it's not about how much, it's actually what you do with it. And it goes back to the needs and wants thing. And it's interesting you brought Ron up, because he had gotten that theory from one of the things in terms of one of my books about, I will pay for the basics. I will have the kids research. You need jeans. You need them. You need 1 or 2 pairs of jeans. I will pay whatever that is. Go see what you can buy it for at Target. If you want the designer jeans, you can work and add that money to it. And it was funny because my daughter, I was doing Oprah years ago, and she was on, and she had selected designer jeans that she wanted, but it was going to be 3 months of work to earn the designer jeans. And I said, that's fine. I didn't put a value judgment on that. So she got into this whole work thing. And then she said, you know what? It's not worth it to me. And she was on air. She was in the audience, and Oprah asked her, she's still struggling with post-traumatic stress syndrome from this, because Oprah said to her, turn around. Let's look at the label on the back of your pants. And I thought, oh, this kid's going to kill me. And it was generic. It was not designer. And it was a big conversation with Oprah. And my daughter said, it wasn't worth it to me. I had selected it, thought I wanted it, but the work wasn't worth it. So, yes, I'm sure, punished me for that. But the whole point is that let them make the decision. Don't say to them, and I'm sure Bobbi would agree, don't say, oh, that choice is stupid. If you want to work for it, that's fine. So, right?
Yes, I 100% agree. And I hope I'm not going to jump the gun with you on something you're going to talk about soon, Andy. But on the point of allowance, I have said something somewhat controversial, and that is that I don't think allowance is for every kid. I tried it with my son when he was younger, and I said, you're not getting your allowance unless you do these things. You have to make your bed, you have to get yourself up in the morning, and so on. And then, but I had some things that were not tied to allowance. Like, it was his job to take out the garbage, and he always did it. The things tied to allowance, he just didn't do, because he just said, I don't need anything. He was a little boy. He says, I have everything I want. Why do I need to earn an allowance, right? So it kind of backfired on me. And then it did open up to other things, like maybe it would be nice to give to a charity, and that kind of got him a little bit more motivated. But it's true. Sometimes they can decide they just don't want it that much. And that's an interesting thing to have a conversation about as well.
Yeah, it's case by case. Each kid's different.
Yeah.
I really love that. And I think about, like, in our house, I agree with you, Bobbi. Like, we don't pay our kids an allowance to do the things that we have to do. So taking out the trash, cleaning off the table, loading the dishwasher. But our middle daughter is very eager to earn money, and she doesn't get as many babysitting opportunities as her older sister. And so we have 3 dogs, and dogs poop, and she picks up the poop in the yard. And we said, like, okay, if we were to hire, one of these companies that comes and picks up the poop, that's, $25-$30 a week. We will pay you that amount of money. And she does it. She doesn't like it, but she knows that sometimes you have to do unpleasant things to earn money. And she gets her $30 every week, and she saves it up. But she's absolutely connected the labor that goes involved to earn that $25 or $30 with what she's going to spend it on. And it's really helped her tremendously with saving and thinking through purchases that she wants to make.
I didn't know that was a business. I'm new to that. I'm recently moved from New York City, and we just pick up our own dog's poop as we go along.
Not in the suburbs. There's a business for everything in the suburbs. So.
Valuable potential side hustle. All right, let's go to segment 4.
Access to financial education is not equal across all communities. Socioeconomic disparities, cultural attitudes, and language barriers all play a role in shaping financial literacy levels. Addressing these challenges requires targeted solutions that make financial education more inclusive and accessible. Underserved communities often face obstacles such as limited access to banking services, financial coaching, and educational resources. Cultural beliefs about money, including communal financial support or distrust of financial institutions, also influence financial behaviors. Community-based programs help tailor financial education to specific needs, ensuring relevance and engagement. Digital tools expand access, providing mobile-friendly financial education for those without traditional resources. Personalized mentorship and coaching create trusted learning environments, while multilingual materials address language barriers. Public and private initiatives that promote financial inclusion can help close the literacy gap. By ensuring financial education is adaptable and widely available, individuals from all backgrounds can gain the skills needed to build a secure financial future.
Bobbi, you're working with companies a lot. Do you see that? Is that a reflection, the demand for that? Is that a reflection that schools are not doing enough to address financial disparities in education?
Well, I would reframe the question, Andy, because I think there's different life stages, and I think there's different needs at different life stages. So when I go and speak to young people, usually the young employees, usually in their 20s, early career people, some of them did get financial education in school or from their parents, but that's very different from real grown-up financial life and the decisions that they have to make. And so even if they learned the idea of what a 401k is in school, or even if they learn the idea of budgeting, real world experiences are very different, and they can become very nuanced. What if your friends have, one of the big things they ask about, what if your friends have different financial circumstances? They were all maybe equal in college. Some people come from wealthier families, some not, but they all basically they're not living on their jobs, but somebody might have gone into work on Wall Street, and somebody else is, still in graduate school learning to be a social worker. And how do you reconcile when you all want to go on vacation and you have different ideas about that vacation? So it's a lot of those kind of real world discussions about how to be kind to your friend, how to be intentional with your money, how to balance. Maybe all of your friends want to chip in on a gift for somebody who's getting married, and you have the money, but that somebody else in the group, it is a financial hardship. How do you kind of interject protecting your friend? It's not always about you. And even one of my favorite things is when they start learning from each other. Like, they don't have enough money to live alone, to live on their own, independent from their parents, but they see one of their friends did, they can ask each other. So I really encourage them to be supportive, not judgmental of their peer group, because this is a time when they're independent from their parents, or at least trying to be, and it opens up a whole different perspective. So both can be true. They can learn a lot about finances when they're children, when they're teenagers, in school, in college, but grown-up life is a whole different animal.
Thank you for reframing that for me. Neale, what are the biggest financial literacy barriers faced by underserved communities?
It's normally with underserved, and I've served actually millions of the underserved community throughout my years, is that there's an understanding, two things. Number one, we don't have money, so there's nothing to talk about. And number two, as a family, everyone has to chip in to save together. So there's not necessarily the individual. However, conversely, a lot of the kids want designer sneakers, want the clothing with labels on it, which is also a cultural thing in terms of not building net worth, but building something transactional in terms of a self-esteem. So what I try to do is have the family look a little bit more long-term to building wealth, meaning maybe you'd like to buy a home someday. Maybe you want to teach the kids that it's not just that they have to earn something this second, but that education may be more important, and to start moving the value system a little bit. And it's amazing how responsive. What I do is I have an exercise that I play with older teens, and I call it License to Drive. Every kid wants a car. And what I do is I have them figure out mathematically, and I help them with the math, what you would have to earn, which is what Paul was saying, to support that car of your dreams. Now, all of a sudden, when these kids figure out mathematically that to get that really cool car that they want, they have to earn, $100,000 a year. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, that's stupid. How can I get a car and I'm not spending that much? And universally, I found that the kids, rather than say, wow, that's ridiculous, I'm still going to get it, they start backing up. Well, I could get a cheaper car. I could get a used car. I could do this. And they figure it out themselves.
Paul, you've seen both ends of the spectrum because you've interviewed billionaires. In your book, you said that you grew up in a lower middle class area in Massachusetts. How can we help more people?
It's a great question, and I'm very open about it. Like, I was a financial aid kid at prep school, financial aid kid in college, financial aid kid in graduate school. I think the most important thing for me growing up was setting expectations and having them align with what I wanted to do. And I was very analytical from an early age. And so what does this mean? The world's greatest English teacher, the best English teacher in the United States, will never earn as much money as the world's worst hedge fund portfolio manager. They just pay, different levels altogether. And so when I was able to square that in my mind, I didn't look at people with envy. I didn't say, okay, why do they have this? Like, okay, I understood that certain jobs, pay more money. And it's something we really work hard with to instill in our daughters and say, like, my middle daughter loves kids, and she's already announced that she either wants to be a pediatrician or a kindergarten teacher. Now, forget that there are two different levels of education that you need to be those two things. They also pay vastly different amounts of money. And so we've had, open conversations with her. Like, that's fine if you want to do that. But, pediatrician may live in a house like this. Kindergarten teacher may live in a house like that. So for me, early on, I was lucky that, I went off to prep school. And I think in some ways back then you wore a uniform. So it was a great equalizer. And so we sort of distinguished ourselves by, how smart we were or how good we were on the athletic field. But it was always sort of, observing people and being analytical and realizing that, the investment banker will have more options in life. But, is he going to be, wealthy? He could be that highly leveraged investment banker and under a tremendous amount of stress. Whereas that kindergarten teacher could be quite wealthy by my definition because he or she's able to do whatever they want to do in life. So it's really setting those expectations and aligning accordingly.
Yeah, much needed conversations and dialogue. Sam, I'm going to plug your money school because I was looking at it and I see that you have a lot of free activities there, but then you have a premium membership. The premium membership is $24 for the year. Like, I thought it was going to be $24 per month. It's $24 per year. So how can digital resources really bridge the gap for kids who lack access to traditional financial education?
I think that's one way you do it is you have a combination of free and affordable resources. That's one strategy. That's our thought. I just want to go back to this. We've done a lot of work in low-income schools with low-income families and all of that. To me, one of the big disservices, and I think this can help related to the issue we're talking about, that schools don't do, all right, is just tell parents what is available, all right? There is so much available today, it's unbelievable. And access has never been easier. That's not to say it's perfect or cannot get better. But you have like the FDIC, you have the Federal Reserve, you have all these places that are offering financial education. Some of it's better than others, but most of it is directionally correct, that can be accessed today online, or you can write them and they'll mail you stuff. So there really aren't a lot of reasons, there may be some, why families who want financial education are not getting it. That's at every level, but in particular at the high school level. One of the narratives I hear all the time is, that kids are saying high school kids want financial literacy. And I'm like, well, why aren't they getting it? They've got time to play video games. They can access it on their smartphones. They can access it on their laptop. They can access it through libraries at their school if they really wanted it. So I don't know that they really want it. Some of them obviously do. I'm just saying by and large. But low-income kids, they're not being led in that direction. And something Neale said, that was very interesting to me relative to, whether schools, more of them are starting to mandate financial education, whether they're going to be a net positive or not, relates to this whole values issue. Okay, when you're in the schools, you realize all these teachers have their own values, and not all of them are aligned towards a word you used early in the show, financial independence, or even financial security. And so it might end up being a mixed bag, but minimally, what they could do a better job, and they don't have to change any curriculum, is just let parents know what is available.
Thank you for that. Let's bring it home and go to the last segment.
Encouraging children to earn, save, and invest helps them develop financial independence and an entrepreneurial mindset. Hands-on experiences in business, budgeting, and investing teach valuable skills that extend into adulthood. Small-scale ventures, such as selling handmade crafts or running a lemonade stand, introduce children to pricing, profit margins, and customer service. Budgeting skills start with simple allowance management. Dividing earnings into categories, saving, spending, and donating, reinforces financial planning. Opening a savings account demonstrates how money grows through interest, fostering long-term thinking. Investing concepts can be introduced through simulations and discussions on compound interest. Stock market games provide practical exposure to risk, returns, and market trends, helping children understand investment principles. Mentorship, problem-solving exercises, and exposure to real-world entrepreneurs inspire creativity and resilience. Teaching kids to recognize opportunities and manage money wisely prepares them for financial success and innovative thinking in the future.
Neale, you mentioned teaching kids earning money, starting with an allowance. But I'm curious, when your kids were young, did you encourage them to have entrepreneurial pursuits?
Yeah, they can always earn extra money. And I think it's wonderful when they're entrepreneurs. But I also talk about with them, you just don't decide you're going to be an entrepreneur. You have to have a plan. You have to have some money to get started. And how is that going to happen? So I really teach them real entrepreneurial skills. I had opened up an institute for youth entrepreneurship up in Harlem in 1988, and we started a greeting card company. And these kids who were 11-year-olds at very at-risk, families, started a business and learned every single inch of how to run a business. And they did it. And they became entrepreneurs as 11-year-olds. So it's very real. The kids love it. There's skills they can learn, but they have to learn all the basics also. It's not just let's do a business.
Yeah, there are a lot of lessons to be learned. Sometimes the hard way.
Yep.
So one shout out from Eric. I think he was commending Sam for going into lower income schools and helping to bridge the gap. Oh, and Sam's website, sammyrabbit.com. Sam, can you talk about age appropriate ways kids can start earning their own money?
Well, each parent, in my mind, they need to decide when their child is ready to start earning money. For me, it happened around 5 or 6. I don't remember exactly, but my dad invited us to wash my aunt's cars, and that's how we began earning money. But it could be the greeting cards, it could be babysitting. A parent has to decide that. But I think the earlier you can introduce the idea that have a strong earning habit. One of the things in the Sammy Rabbit Money School we have that you could start around 4 years old is to develop your own philosophy towards money around saving, earning, investing, spending smart, giving. And the philosophies are very simple. I'm an earner. I like making money. I like earning money in multiple ways. I like lots of income streams. And then, you might give your kids opportunities. I love what Paul was doing with his, one daughter who was getting less babysitting opportunities. He created an opportunity. So yeah, allowance is a kind of a tricky thing because I guess there's unearned allowance and there's earned allowance. So that's allowances are complicated. They're not, for many people, they're not practical. All right. So so there's a lot of things there, but I think, organized coupons, all that could start somewhere around 3 or 4 small tasks. You keep building and layering. Everything is building and layering, taking steps. So you start with the conversation and introducing the idea. I encourage people to drop with their babies, drop a coin in a glass jar and shake and say, shake that money bank or piggy bank. We like saving, at the Rennicks type of a thing. So you introduce the idea, the feelings, the attitudes, start building, habits, give them opportunities to earn a little bit of money on their own. What's interesting is kids, this is even adults, they spend money differently that they earn versus money that they're given. And one of the big changes in society today is kids are not only given a lot of money, but they have influence over spending decisions. I mean, I was at Starbucks this morning. There was a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the dad was asking them, "What do you want?" Let me just tell you, when I was growing up, I never got asked that question.
You get what you get, and you don't get upset.
It's a whole different mindset today.
Bobbi, how about your views on entrepreneurial ventures? Because you're very much an entrepreneur yourself. Books, podcasts, building a business. Did you encourage your kids to do that?
I think within parameters. I think that I really like what Neale said about this, because I think it's important to not over glamorize the idea of being an entrepreneur. I became an entrepreneur after I had a very specific skill set and a very specific runway with a lot of backstop and a lot of family support and a lot of education credentials, network already. A lot of the most successful entrepreneurs are actually older rather than younger. And people forget that because the young wonder kids get so much press. But the truth is, it often makes sense. And people do this. Smart people with family businesses often have their kids work, quote, in the real world first before going to a family business. And that's for a reason, because it's not as easy as a lot of the people that want to sell you something to help you be an entrepreneur will make it seem like being. And there is also, depending on your personality, because it's very personality driven, being an entrepreneur is every day. You may not have a boss, but you have clients, right? Someone is paying you for something. And when you work for a corporation, you learn a lot of social skills. You learn a lot of the way that different things work in the world, the broader picture. You gain a network of people, and also, not to be left out, benefits are nothing to sneeze at in this day where we have a really challenging healthcare system. We have to teach kids. Age 26, I have a 25-year-old stepson. He's going to roll off our health insurance. So it's important that they understand the cost of being an entrepreneur. And that's always a moving target because things change with the politics. But there are costs involved in being an entrepreneur. And there's a lot of financial benefits to working for a company. So I think it's important to present all options to the next generation.
Well, thank you. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode of Inspired Money. I want to thank the panelists for sharing their insights, their stories, and their expertise. Inspired Moneymaker, thank you for tuning in to the end of this very valuable conversation. Lots of different takeaways. For me, I think that one of the threads that I saw throughout all the segments was the need for conversations with your kids, because it's not one size fits all. We have to adapt like our money lessons for our kids based on their personalities. And we need to have discussions with them all the time. They're learning opportunities in the car or playing video games or watching TV, doing anything. So I think the takeaway is it's not how much money you have, it's how well you use it, and having conversations with kids so that we can teach them and make them aware of how they can do things better. We heard a lot of incredible insights. I want to leave you with just one simple way or one actionable step that you can do this week. And that's having a simple money conversation with a kid in your life. Maybe it's involving them in grocery shopping decisions, setting a small savings goal together, or playing a money-themed board game like Monopoly. Keep it fun, keep it simple, just make it happen. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend who wants to raise financially savvy kids. Let's keep the conversation going. Once again, thank you to our amazing panelists. Be sure to follow them and learn more about them. Neale Godfrey, check out her book, Money Doesn't Grow on Trees, A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Responsible Children. I think that Neale has something like 30 plus books, but you can find her at nealegodfrey.com. Sam Renick, founder of SammyRabbit.com. He has more than one book. One is It's a Habit, Sammy Rabbit. And also, Will Sammy Ride the World's First Space Coaster? Check out his Money School, which I did mention previously. There are 69 free activities, or you can get 431 activities for $24 a year. Bobbi Rebell, thank you for being here. Launching Financial Grownups, How to Be a Financial Grownup are her two books. You can find her at financialwellnessstrategies.com or bobbirebell.com. And Paul Sullivan, who had to drop off at the top of the hour, you can find his books about the thin green line and clutch, why some people excel under pressure and others don't. You can find him at pauljsullivan.com. A shout out to producer Bradley for the assistance in planning for this episode, running the live stream behind the scenes, and for editing our segment videos. Chad Lawrence does our animation and design. We are a small but mighty team. The next Inspired Money episode will be Retirement Travel Adventures, exploring new horizons in luxury. I don't know who the panelists are going to be, but it's going to be fun talking about travel in different places to see in retirement. That will be Wednesday, February 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Hope you can join us then. Until next time, do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens. Thanks, everyone.